Hello subscribers and non-subscribers, and welcome back to ChäoS. It has been quite a while since I've uploaded this because, well, real life kind of got in the way. So while I go ahead and get my timer set up, one thing I do want to mention is that for the month of January, I've decided to go and post links to my regular uploads on my Patreon early. So if you guys want to go and see any of my regular uploads, which is basically stuff that I normally upload Tuesday through Friday, if you want to see them early, then you can head on over to my Patreon. You should be able to see the public posts as I make them and be able to go and watch the videos early. I'll generally try and shoot for getting them up 24 hours early. Sometimes it might be a little bit more than that. Sometimes it might be less than that. But yeah, I will generally shoot for trying to get them up about 24 hours early. So let's go ahead and actually load up the game before I start the timer. I honestly don't remember if this is where we left off. It should be, because I don't generally touch the game unless I'm recording, so whatever it says is the new save should be the save that we want. So let's go ahead, let me start my timer, and I imagine that was probably already read last part. The voice I heard at my back made me literally go flying up and land on my ass. Remy, who should have just left, was standing there. Furthermore, she had all her clothes on. Eyes wide, she looked down at me.
びっくりした。急に大声出さないでよ。さっきから変だよ。一人でブツブツ言い出したかと思ったら急に大声上げるし。どうかしたの？
Why was Remy here? Despite the fact that she definitely left. Could it be that the arrow Remy I'd seen was a delusion? Arrow Remy had felt amazingly real. Though I hadn't touched her, merely looking at her had conveyed the sense that her skin would be soft and resilient if I touched it. And what the hell am I saying? What was wrong with me today?
ねえ、タク。
I flinched when she called me. Did she think less of me now? What would I do if I'd fallen out of her good graces? If Remy weren't with me, I wouldn't even be able to go outside by myself anymore.
私、喉乾いてきちゃった。何か飲み物ある？
She asked me the exact same thing as earlier. Except she'd said it in a markedly sexy tone before, but this time she sounded 100% normal. I reflectively gave a little shake of my head. Seeing this, Remy poked herself in the temple with her pointer finger and puckered her lips as though she lapsed into thought.
ないなら買ってこようかな。コンビニって深センの駅前にあったよね。ちょっと行ってくる。
She shot me a smile and left the room without awaiting my answer. Dazed, all I could do was see her off. Going to shop at a convenience store in her school uniform. So ordinary. Arrow Remy had been an illusion of mine after all, it would seem. It left me feeling a little complicated, both let down and relieved. But Arrow Remy, the divided Iases. By what mechanism were such delusions able to manifest in a way that made them feel real? Had I been the one to manifest them in the first place? Did I have the power or not? If I did, how could I come to use it? How could I get my hands on a D-sword? There was still a mountain of problems before me, and I was at a loss for what to do. While Remy went out shopping, I faced my PC, thinking I would look for more detailed information on the patent and thought recording. I found Grim in our chat room, calling out to me. Sighing, I gave up and entered the room. Damn it, what do you mean, totally whose eyes are those? He just wanted to use the phrase, even though I quivered in fear every time I spied those words. Of course, it gave me the usual sense of gloom, but on the other hand, I was also confused. I thought Shogun and Yua would target me for sure this time. Perhaps one could say that they'd postponed it. Above all, I wasn't sure whether or not it was okay for me to celebrate this. Body was discovered last night. The victim died 2 days ago. The one... Okay, so this time the victim got a whack to the head and the brain taken out. I panicked a little when Grimm started giving out the details without any forewarning. I'd had enough of Guru's stuff. I didn't want to hear about it. If I listened, I wouldn't be able to help imagining myself being savagely murdered. I hadn't even found out how to get a D-sword yet. But Grimm continued all the same. It's seriously freaky. What do you think? Or why do you think the victim died? Physical debilitation. He went on living even with his brain gone. I went cold at the horror of it. I hugged my arms to myself. I didn't want to know anymore. Please, spare me. My HP had long since reached 0. Basically, he was brain dead, maybe even for more than a week. He was sitting there without a brain. Obviously, he couldn't eat or drink. So they think that's how he died. That Chan's already given a name, Brainless. They've got good taste over there. And the hilarious part is, the victim was a psychiatrist. A psychiatrist who got his brain removed. It totally seems like some kind of message. A psychiatrist. The moment I saw that word, my pulse skyrocketed. Maybe I was thinking too much, but I wanted to know for sure. I had the feeling that I needed to know for sure. After hesitating countless times, I went to the Taboo homepage and opened a piece with information on Brainless. The name of the victim was Takashia Fumio. Dr. Takashina. Dr. Takashina had been killed. This was aimed at me. Shogun clearly meant to provoke me. This is why he made an example of Dr. Takashina, on whom I'd relied so much, and murdered him. I screamed. My mind was turning to pulp. It felt like I was about to go crazy. I looked for Rimi. I frantically searched my room again and again. Not there, not there, not there. Why wasn't she there? Because she'd gone out shopping. Holding my head, I laid down in place. She replied. When I raised my head with a gasp, Rimi was standing next to me carrying a convenience store bag. Thank God she'd come back for me. Relieved, I stretched out my hand to her. Crouching, Rimi took my hand in both of hers. Rimi's hand had been cool when she touched me before. Now it was amazingly warm. Smiling gently, Rimi wiped my tears away with her fingers. I was truly a pathetic guy, crying and screaming and cowering like this in front of a girl. But Rimi had said she would stay with me. Now her warmth was the one piece of support keeping my spirit from breaking. I didn't want to let go of this hand until I acquired a D-sword. Okay, I didn't realize we were near the end. Oh, it's the same image. That night, the atmosphere at Miyashita Park was strange. An enormous group clustered together in the middle of the park. There must have been over 100 people among them. Almost all of them were men and women in their teens. Some were wearing school uniforms, others were girls in a fashionable were in fashionable casual clothing. Some were boys wearing otaku-esque glasses, others were Ganguro high school girls, a rarity in these times. An onlooker might think some kind of entertainment event was taking place, but closer observation would reveal that the gatherers' condition was far from normal. All of them faced downward, their eyes empty and unfocused. Though so many of them had gathered here, none exchanged conversations with each other, instead standing in place without attempting to move a single step away. Every single one of them wore faint smiles, and all were muttering something under their breath. The words they poured all their heart and soul into repeating were, "Whose eyes are those?" Those words emitted by the mouths of the 100 murmurers resounded through the park like a Buddhist sutra, flat and emotionless. Perhaps because of how bizarre they seemed, there were no other figures to be seen in Miyashita Park. Office ladies cutting through the park on their way home from work, and middle-aged women taking their dogs for a walk. Everyone grew flustered at the unnatural spectacle and turned back the way they had come. There was only one man paying attention to the peculiar group. He too appeared to have some connection to them, but he stood off to one side by himself, without joining them. With his clothes, he could have easily blended in at Akihabara, a check-patterned shirt, jeans, worn-out sneakers, fingerless gloves, a red bandana, and a big green rucksack on his back. He was fairly corpulent to the point that his shirt buttons threatened to pop apart any moment now. Though it was the latter portion of October and should have been rather cool out, he constantly wiped sweat from his forehead with a hand towel. His eyes darted around as if he couldn't calm down, but his shoulders also seemed to be shaking with laughter. Aside from the group's sutra-like chant, an unidentified mechanical sound echoed through the park, emerging from his rucksack. Another high school girl, this time wearing an undone blazer, entered the park. Far from shrinking away from the odd group, she fixed her eyes on them and steadily drew near. She was infused with intimidating poise as she walked, her long, dark hair stirring in the breeze. In sharp contrast with that, she, for some reason, held a half-eaten popsicle. The group took absolutely no notice of her. Having completely entered their own world, they focused solely on continuing to recite the same words. Nor did she lift an eyebrow at being ignored. Once she had drawn up close to them, she abruptly stopped. There was a remarkable Yengris, or is that supposed to be an L? I'm going to assume that's supposed to be an L, so Languorous, I guess. I don't know how to pronounce that. Air to her as she bit down on her popsicle. The sound of crunching leaked from her mouth when she chewed. When she finished eating and glanced at the stick remaining in her hand, she clicked her tongue a little and tossed it down by her feet. The group in her eyes remained sharp as she moved her gaze across the group, going one by one from face to face. The rucksack-wearing man spoke as if he'd reached the limits of his endurance. Naturally, the girl, Aoi Senna, was aware that this man alone had been studying her for some time now. She snorted as though to mock him, then suddenly crossed her hands over each other as she extended them directly in front of her. The space around her hands contorted, and a long, vague, metallic shape appeared floating there. It might appear to be either a hoe or a shovel, but its shape differed subtly from both of them. The tip of its razor-sharp blade was divided in two. She gripped it with both hands when at last it developed a distinct shape. But it didn't end there. Immediately after, a blue light burned along the double blade she held in the air to her right, at which it pointed. In the same way as before, metal parts floated up out of the illuminated space. Upon materializing, they fused noisily with the long blade. At last, there formed a ring, and another trail of light streaked from it toward the right. The divided blade traced the trail as it rose. Though one might have thought it was a shovel or a hoe, it had at some point metamorphosized to a giant sword. Sharp yet lovely, clean yet destructive, sinister yet beautiful. With its supreme sense of presence, the sword settled into Senna's hand. The man with the rucksack showed no reaction. He only narrowed his lips and stared at her.
あっち行けよ。
Ah, damn it. Accidentally held down on the left mouse button a little bit too longer, so his tone was thoroughly overbearing, his voice high for a man, and demanded that Senna leave even as he stood some distance from her, waving her away. Senna, in contrast, quietly opened her mouth without the slightest shift in expression. More than a regular question, it was an inquiry for confirmation. Her eyes were nailed to him. The rucksack-wearing man showed a previously unseen confusion. He lost interest and pulled back, but he didn't answer her. The group, muttering, whose eyes are those, made not a single effort to intervene in their exchange, or maybe it would be more appropriate to say that it hadn't even registered with them. Senna's gaze clashed with them with that of the rucksack man. He was the first to look away.
誰だよそれ。例えしてても教えないけどな。
Falling silent, Senna swung her huge two-handed sword with ease. Brandishing it as though to weigh the distance between her and him, she lowered her center of gravity and her torso leaned forward. The sword had radiated light again, but rather than the same blue as before, it had been reddish-purple light. Without warning, it rang out a sound like a woman's shrill scream. Space trembled. Not metaphorically, physically. With Senna's great sword at its center, the air itself began vibrating. The sword's red glow grew dazingly vivid. Senna took a quiet breath and clenched her back teeth together. A crashing sound roared. Numerous sparks surged forth. A sonic wave had erupted as though to blow away the vibrating air. The vibration soon came under control, but the sword's red glow continued blinking, reminiscent of the pulse in one's veins. Senna gradually moved its point toward the man with the rucksack. By now, even the disinterested group had begun to evince some perplexity. They began running away, bewildered. All of them seemed startled, as if they had just come back to themselves. Senna went on focusing on the man alone, without a glance for the rest of them. Though he had not previously demonstrated any obvious fear, he began growing flustered. Going pale, he retreated one step at a time. He shook his head like a stubborn child.
待って、俺は畑野なんてやつ本当に知らないんだ。ただ指示されただけ。
誤解するなと言ったはず。
Senna took no notice of his plea.
質問したのはただの挨拶代わりだ。お前が何を答えたって、それを壊すことに変わりはない。
A fierce glitter resided in her eyes. Crying out pathetically, the rucksack man turned on his heel to flee. But the scattered group, bolting left and right, lay ahead of him. His escape route blocked, the panicking man pulled to a halt so fast he pitched about. That was when Senna leapt forward, closing the distance between them. One could never have imagined her slim arms to be capable of dealing out such a fast, ruinous blow. Sweeping along horizontally, the blade tore through the man's rucksack, together with its contents. The impact sent him flying as well. Collapsing on the ground, he rolled into a ball, holding his head and shaking all over. He seemed to have lost the energy needed to run away. He was so frightened that he lost control of his bladder, and the crotch area of his pants began to stain itself wet. Senna walked up to him and showing no interest in the man himself, dropped her gaze to what lay inside the ripped open, broken rucksack. Sparks scattered within it, crackling. A mechanical device had been put inside it. Originally, it might have been about twice as large as a modem, but the D-sword had eaten through it, shattering it to pieces. It wouldn't be of any use anymore. One could no longer hear the irritating mechanical whir that had been coming out of this rucksack until a few seconds earlier. As she murmured to no one in particular, Senna's voice was tinged with loathing. Is it tinged or tinged? Whatever. Doesn't really matter. As autumn deepened, air gradually grew colder and colder. It's hard to believe that I'd gotten by with short sleeves only a little while ago. The sky was a little dull somehow, as though its colors were fading. But in exchange, the fall leaves at the park and so forth were brilliant. Maybe the trees were stealing away the sun's vibrancy, or the sky's vibrancy. I stuck my toothbrush in my mouth as I gazed up at the subdued sky. One of the nice things about the base where I lived was that I could freely use the open space of the roof without needing to worry about catching anyone's eye. It was inconvenient when it rained because the sink was located outside the container housing, but on days with good weather I would come outside and brush my teeth like this. Rubbing my sleepy eyes as I moved the toothbrush, I thought back over what had happened yesterday. Remy had stayed in my room with me until late at night. She held my hand for almost an hour, the full time it took me to calm down. That said, nothing else happened between us before she went home. We were two people of the opposite sex and the same age, and we'd been in the same small room for hours, all by ourselves, but there hadn't been a single bit of innuendo in our conversations. If I had the ability to talk about such things, I'd already be living a full-fledged life. No, more than that, the part of me with ulterior motives made me want to throw up. Remy was pure-heartedly looking to help me as a friend, but she had already done a great deal to save me simply by telling me, "I'll be there for you." There is a huge difference between having and not having a source of moral support. Despite the huge impact of learning about Dr. Takashina's murder and the Brainless incident, I had managed to become much more mentally stable now than a day or so earlier. Come to think of it, what was the truth about that arrow Remy? She'd seemed too real for a delusion. It remained incredibly hot no matter how much I reflected back on it. I hadn't exactly surveyed every inch of her, but I'd certainly spied things like the wrinkles in her panties. As a self-appointed pantymeister, only when it comes to figures, I thought those wrinkles were considerably realistic. It wasn't the kind of thing you could come up with in a daydream. No, hey, that crap didn't matter either way. The power to project delusions into reality. Did something like that truly exist? Was Shogun targeting me because I possessed it? If I did have such a power, one of my childhood memories came back to life. The day I hadn't been able to go on the field trip, the day I alone hadn't met with an accident. The bus rolled over and my classmates had gotten hurt. Mr. Saito, my teacher, died. Those images had appeared vividly inside my head. I'd seen them clearly. Were they just a form of precognition? What if it wasn't precognition? If it was one of my delusions? If that delusion had been projected into reality? My body threatened to start quaking, and I wrapped my arms around myself to suppress it.
だとしたら僕は
A murderer.
おはよ
Remy was there. Cheerful, despite how early it was, she gave me a huge smile. When I saw her smile, my shaking stopped. It was strange. I was supposed to have a hard time with 3D girls, but for some reason, I could relax if I were together with Remy.
う。迎えに来たよ。なんでポッカーンってしてるの？
Ah, right. According to my minimum attendance shift chart, I'd have to go to school today as well. When I mentioned that to Remy yesterday...
迎えに来てあげるって言ったよね。
Right. Thanks to Shogun, I was now afraid to so much as walk around outside of myself. Seeing me like that, Remy had told me, "I'll be there for you." She was sticking to her promise.
まさか本当に来るとは思わなかったとか？ビシッ。残念でした。
Oh.
こう見えても私尽くすタイプなんだ。
and accidentally hit the right mouse button now. Rimi said, winking impishly. What era is this from? Having a female classmate come to your house to get you. It was a situation you'd almost never experience in real life. Although the ultimate best pattern would be if she barged into your room and forcibly shook you awake. Rimi, standing beside me as I had that kind of idiotic daydream, abruptly tipped her head back to look at the sky. Her eyes grew distant again.
冬の空が色あせたように見えるのはどうしてだと思う？
There had been 7 colors in sunlight, the familiar colors of the rainbow. In order for those 7 colors to reach human eyes, they had to pass through the Earth's atmosphere. As they do so, a phenomenon known as diffusion takes place. To put it simply, light slants off in random directions when it collides with atmospheric particles. Slanting off in random directions means that it ends up going here and there all over the place. This makes it easier to reach human sight. Out of all the colors, purple and blue scatter most easily. That's why the sky is blue. I'm smart. But Rimi's answer was utterly separate from scientific proof in its absence of romance.
きっと寒くてみんなが下を向いちゃうから。
I mean, I guess in terms of literal romance, it might be devoid of it, or have an absence of it. But I could kind of see somebody probably writing that if they were writing a book. Yeah.
青を望む人の数が減っちゃうの。
I had the feeling that I'd heard her say something similar before. When was it again?
だから寒くても上を向いて歩こう。
I hastily changed outfits and left the Kurinahai building with Rimi, or however you pronounce that. Going to school together. Huh. No matter how I looked at it, this was the essence of being in real life. Shogun and Yuo were scary and obnoxious, and the die, no really go die type, but it was thanks to them that I was able to undergo this sort of real-life experience. Maybe I should be a tiny bit grateful to them. I tried to compel myself, but Dr. Takashina's face revived at the back of my mind, and my crazy mood soon drained away. It might be my fault that he'd been killed. The Shogun had murdered the doctor with a connection to me, either as a sign to me or a form of provocation. Fear and insecurity overwhelmed me. I gradually began to lag behind Rimi's walking pace. I glanced at the back of Rimi's head from behind her, and a little off to the side. What kind of expression was she making? She was humming. This was a song from the Phantasm CD I loaned her yesterday. Her footsteps seemed light. We weren't even talking, so why did she appear to be having so much fun? As I watched her, my anxiety decreased a little. But honestly, I wondered why Rimi was this kind to me. Could the reason for it be found in my time spent with her, the time of which I had only blank memories? We reached the school. I sent Rimi on ahead and stopped by the bathroom. Or when we reached the school, I sent Rimi on ahead and stopped by the bathroom. This was one aspect of my coping strategy. I felt bad since Rimi had gone as far as to pick me up, but arriving at school with a girl would be much too conspicuous, especially if the class juvies spotted me. They might use it as an excuse to pick a fight. That was why I went to the bathroom and bought some time, so it would look like I'd come to school on my own. On a side note, I failed in this. I left the bathroom in every appearance of innocence and, facing downward, walked along the edge of the hall to my classroom. Midway through, I saw Ayase walking toward me from afar. When our eyes met, she twisted her lips into a thin smile. Ayase was a celebrity. I figured I'd hold back on talking to her in school since it would make me stand out. But with her standing there as though to block my way, I had no choice but to follow her lead.
匠、あれから警察はどう？
On the verge of shrieking, I clamped a hand over my mouth. Why were you bringing up such a risky topic with all these people around? I took a flustered look at our surroundings. The situation was pretty bad. As expected, Ayase was the target of everyone's attention. Not only was her coming to school rare in and of itself, but she also led the vocalists, or she was also the lead vocalist of Phantasm and, furthermore, an androgynous beauty. Girls and guys alike were deeply interested in her. Normally, it'd be inconceivable for her to talk to an otaku freak like me. The onlookers' gazes stung. I wanted to flee.
剣を探してる。君はそうしなくちゃいけないのよ。
She said the same thing every single time we met. Ayase might have been on my side, but I got pretty sick of her when she repeated herself like she was the village idiot. I wanted to get my hands on it more than anyone, but I didn't know how.
ヒントが欲しい。
And my dog is snoring.
君はどうやってあれを手に入れた？
いつの間にかそこにあった。
This again. Was she avoiding giving me an answer after all?
気づかなかったわ、最初は。
And my timer just went off. But I think we'll continue roughly till the end of this conversation.
でも、ちょっとだけ見方を変えたら分かった。もしかしたら、匠にももう見えているのかも。見ていないだけで。
I had no idea what she meant. Talking with Ayase always wore me out. Spare me the Zen koans, would you? Or koans? I guess. That's the only I can think of for how you pronounce that.
剣はちゃんと探してるよ。僕だって絶対手に入れたいから。
Having said that much, I let out a sigh and slipped past her, heading for my classroom as the gazes stabbed me from all sides grew intolerable. There, I became even more depressed. Misumi spearheaded a mixed-sexed group of kids, all staring at me dazedly. Damn it, they spotted me talking to Ayase. Shit, who knew what they'd say to me? I'd be fine if they shunned me, but I went cold when I thought about them quarreling with me like a playground gang. I lowered my eyes, making myself as small as possible, and went toward my seat. Please, I'll do anything, so leave me alone.
おいおいおい。
My prayer didn't go through.
タク、てめえいつの間に？今岸本と話してたよな。
All I could do was fall silent. I couldn't lift my face to him.
岸本が誰かとまともに会話してるとこ初めて見たぜ。一体どんな手使ったんだよ。
I'm begging you, please don't talk so loudly that it reverberates through the whole classroom. Please let me be. I've got no intention of laying a finger on Ayase. I know I wouldn't be worthy of doing so in the first place. That's why I'm asking you, please don't make such a big deal out of it.
なあタク、教えろって。
大地、
Rimi dove between us.
落ち着け。タクが困ってるでしょ。
悪い悪い。
Misumi lowered his voice and patted me lightly on the back. Head still hanging, I sighed quietly. Rimi had saved me yet again.
で、実際のところどうやったんだ？
The very model of a man driven by his lower half.
もう、大地ってほんと節操ないよね。そのうち彼女さんに刺されるんじゃない？
心配すんなって。俺こう見えても各種ケアは欠かさねえから。
何それ？
なあタク、教えろよ。岸本とはどんな感じなんだ？
Misumi rubbed my shoulders as he persisted in asking me. Left without much of a choice, I meekly raised my head. About half the people from before were taking quick glances at me as they whispered to each other. Shit, they were still watching me. Don't look at me. The nape of my neck prickled. It'd be the end of me if I'd caught a delinquent's fancy. Bullying hell would be the one thing awaiting me. What to do? Should I run? Skip out on classes and hurry on home? But I couldn't go back alone. My legs froze when I thought about the chances of running into Shogun or Yua. Should I have Rimi come along with me? She'd said before that she was the devoted type, and if those words hadn't been a lie, surely she would skip classes with me. In any case, I wanted to get out of this classroom as soon as possible. A bombastic noise came from the direction of the entrance. Everyone looked over there to see what was happening. The transfer student. Teary-eyed, she rubbed her forehead while bowing to everyone around her, silent as always. The suddenness of what happened made the classroom fall silent. What on earth had...
今の見たか？
見た。一人で勝手に扉に激突してたね。
やっぱ梢ちゃんは可愛いな。
What a picture-perfect real-life klutz.
また泣いた。大丈夫かな。すごい音してたけど。
After murmuring worriedly, Rimi went up to the transfer student faster than anyone else. She was quite the meddler, but maybe I should call it her kindness.
リミに先越された。待て待て。梢ちゃんを解放するのは俺だ。
Declaring loudly that she didn't have to do anything, Misumi belatedly ran over to the transfer student. Her running into an accident had provided me with a fortunate side effect. The people who had been staring coldly at me before had all shifted their attention to her. Good job, I needed to tell her. Only my ears suddenly picked up on what a group of girls near my desk were saying.
うざ。何あれ。狙ってやってんじゃん。
Barely audible murmurs.
視界にはデッドスポットと呼ばれる通常は使用されることのないいくつかの神経チャンネルが存在することをご存知ですか?
Okay, we're going to go and end this here. Because we just sort of transferred into a new section now. I would have preferred if they didn't have somebody actually speak that dialogue right there. But oh well. So that is going to be it for this episode. I will, at some point, try to make up for all the many, many missed episodes that I've had over the time frame that we've been doing this series. But I will see you guys next time. Yeah. So, as always, like, comment, subscribe, share, and I'll see you guys next time. But until then, goodbye and farewell.